Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yusril, and this could very well be the worst idea that I have had in some quite considerable time. In fact, it may actually be the worst idea I've seen in some quite considerable time. This is the beginning of what I intend to be a pretty much complete playthrough of levelling a Klingon side character. We're going to go tactical with this, below anything resembling subtlety. Now, race. Join Trill. That used to be I think it was a collector's edition thing back in the day. It's now a C-store thing if you're so inclined. Lethians, never actually gone for one of those. Nausicans if you really want to justify a colossally, epically bad temper. Yeah, never been quite taken with the Nausicans. You know what? Let's just sod this. Let's just go Klingon, the original and still the best. Obviously, I could have gone Orion or Aiden as well, but hey, who cares? Klingon. Only way to go, ladies and gentlemen. Unless you fancy being a 12-foot tall quarter-ton lizard, but hey. Traits. Now, I'm going to tweak this slightly. Accuracy is always good. Warp Theorist is really handy in space. More power to subsystems is always an excellent thing to have. Can't alter either of those, and they'll do for the ground. And Accurate, for various reasons, I actually consider a must-take. Plus 10% accuracy in space is really, really handy. That's essentially a 1 quality level upgrade to all of your weapons. Now we can tweak the appearance pretty much though, lots of standards, all the stereotypical stuff, what to go for. Variant 1's actually pretty decent. I'll say this for Cryptic, their character modelling is generally really good. You can tweak body type as well, but let's just customise this guy up a bit. So he's already kind of doing the Chang look, but I think we can tweak the eyebrows, make them a little less dramatic. So let's do that. And obviously we're evil, so we have to have a goatee beard. And why not? Let's go full Chang. Although Plummer was clean shaven in that movie, wasn't he? Mirror Chang, who presumably is not a devious backstabbing sod. May need to rethink that theory a little. Body type, nothing too outrageous there, and uniform variants, well, you can go for all sorts here. Generally, placement of fins and spikes and some very 80s shoulder pads there, but standard will do. You can always customise that later. And I'll say this for Cryptic's random name generator, it works. It comes up with some really good stuff. It also came up with Yusril, so whether I was wise to take that or not is entirely a matter of opinion. However, that is that. So let this horrid mistake begin. And we find ourselves on Chronos in the Hall of Warriors, and we promptly get spammed out because, of course, I have a fairly long-standing account. Get rid of all of that. Try and ignore the fact that there is roughly 2/3 of a Gorn in front of me. Just retweak the chat window size to keep it legible and then get rid of it temporarily. So, follow the path of the warrior. Well, it beats following the path of the garbage collector, so let's go with it. Talk to her again. And she says, hey, you know what? I can fix you up some bridge officers, but you're going to have to allocate your skill points first. Now, at this stage, because you're Commander 20, you've got about 94,000... Well, you have got 94,147 skill points to spend. Let's make this a little more readable now. Okay, let's actually see what kind of ship they gave us first. Okay, that's not an ideal fit, but it'll do. Personally, I prefer a second cannon over the dual beam bank and a second turret over the aft torpedo launcher, but go with what we've got for the moment. Skills. Attack patterns to start with. Obviously, being a tactical captain, I'm going to be making heavy use of these. Attack pattern alpha is a tactical captain skill. And Beta and Omega will also get some fairly heavy use. Beta for even more damage, Omega just for getting you out from under things like tractor beams. The rest of that's all pretty standard. You'll notice I'm only putting 6 points into any given skill at the moment. That's just to spread things around and get an even core of skills. I'll probably come back to things like weapons training and attack patterns and bump those all the way up to level 9 at some stage, but for the moment I'm being a little bit careful with the points. Because you get bigger skill boosts at lower levels, 18, 36, 54, then it drops again at levels 4, 5 and 6, drops again at levels 7, 8 and 9. It pays initially to just spread your skill points out a little and try and get the core boosts in a lot of key things, such as, for example, structural integrity. Commit that, get the various training, which we won't need for several episodes yet, and we're on to the important bits in life, namely kicking somebody's head in. Or more accurately, dealing multiple slash wounds, lacerations, stabs, and possibly blunt trauma as well. Don't even ask why there's a lockbox there, I have no idea. Now, who's the ugliest brute in the room? You'll do. So, melee combat, why go for this? Aside from tradition, of course, in a universe that's full of ray guns, well, the answer is that melee damage does have this tendency to bypass shields. So if you're up against an annoying mob type, like, say, a Romulan engineer, any engineer in fact, who have this tendency to recharge their shields really, really quickly, then often it's quicker just to holster the phaser and beat them down the old-fashioned way. Now, hopefully she'll actually let us have the bridge officers. No, she won't. Fine, we'll go and kick somebody else's head in. Welcome to melee combat Klingon style. Why kill one person when you can go for two? Right, do over in Orion just to make the point about Klingons. We are better at this than they are. You'll notice that his shields are going down, but the majority of the damage, I believe it's 50% from most melee attacks, is bypassing those shields. That's the key thing, as I said. Melee combat itself works on 3 strike combos. So your first attack, either 1 or 2, left or right, A or B, call it how you like, will be a fairly weak quick attack. The second attack is stronger. The third attack is a finishing move, and the order in which you chain your left and right attacks determines what combo you get. Perhaps the most useful one is the spin attack that you saw me deploy several times there. That is triggered by going either left, left, or right, left, right. A lot of these attacks are mirrors, so left, right will trigger one version of a dot, right, left will trigger a stacking version of it that is the same but not quite the same. So you can have both running together and it makes for some really, really nasty combos. Another thing to note about melee combat is that you can only use 2 of a given attack in a single 3-move combo. So you can go left, left, or left, right. You can't go left, left, or right, right. And of course, as a knockback, stun, and threat reduction, you have got the middle mouse button. That's essentially the same as the 3 option, the rifle butt smash, the palm strike, etc., that you get with ranged weapons. Same basic functionality, same button, same everything really, just a different weapon, different animation. On to the next stage of the tutorial, and this is essentially the guided tour of Chronos. It's designed to get you up to speed on where everything is and refresh a couple of concepts that you may possibly not have run into during the first 20 or so levels that you'll have been doing with Starfleet. Congratulations, by the way, on having the sense to pick the right side. And yes, it is honourable to march into battle rooms with one eye. Don't give me that. Of course, a certain amount depends on how you got rid of the eye in the first place. If it was battling down a traitor of the House of Geoch, then it is honourable. If, however, you tripped and fell on a beer bottle, then, yeah, less said about that, the better. Now, off to speak to the judge. This isn't necessarily a mission hook in and of itself. It's just designed as a little bit of background and to introduce you to a concept about Klingon legal systems, namely that they are generally fast, brutal and simple. Oh, and the local police make Joe Dredd look positively cute and cuddly. Here he is, Judge. He has no name, he has no house, he has merely the law. And you will obey the law. Although if they've all got no names, that must make trying to work amongst his colleagues really, really awkward. I mean, can you imagine getting a package just addressed to Judge? I mean, is it for Judge or Judge? Or maybe Judge, or Judge who was here last week but went out the Kether Lowlands to handle that theft case? They've got to have some way of telling each other apart. That's got to be a ruse, that no-name thing. The transporter chief, that is actually your quick way up to the shipyard. Or you can just use your ship transporters if you suspect that the transporter chief might possibly not have your best interests at heart. After all, if you're going to allow somebody to rip you atom from atom, shove you through subspace, and then hopefully reassemble you at the other end, it's best to ensure that they are in fact actually trustworthy and haven't been paid to quietly lose your pattern along the way. Someone's doubtless tried that as a method of assassination. Next stop is the Great Hall, and you'll notice that we have a fair amount of back and forth. Essentially, the Leading the Way quest is an overarching mission, and it will send you to each area of the first city in turn. So the Great Hall, the heart of the Empire. And I really don't know how you've heard tales of my victories. I mean, so far they number exactly 2. Yeah. It does not befit council members to be breaking out the brown-nosing, for want of a politer term, this early on in your career. Perhaps a better attitude, or more likely attitude, would be, who are you and what are you doing in front of the High Council? And apparently you can get skirts with anti-gravity these days. Latest Orion technology, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the current Chancellor Jumpok. If for those of you who are wondering where Martok went, he's dead. This guy killed him. And, apparently we can get a promotion to Commander straight off the bat. Well, I won't say no to a few more skill points. Although I've got no idea. Oh, right, so we have to talk to him again. Yes, I also have the spare heart, the lungs, the spleen, the stomach, and indeed the legs of a warrior. Possibly knees of jello, but we'll see how these things go. So that's him talked to. And at this point you're really just toddling around talking to your mission contacts. So Temek is the Imperial Intelligence contact that you'll meet later on in several plots. He will figure again, probably episode 3 or 4, give or take. Depends how fast I get round to the Federation arc. Ditto Ambassador Sura, who really gets around. I mean, this guy, last I saw him Starbase 39, he was also, I believe, parked outside Admiral Quinn's office on Starbase 1 for some time. Then he hot-footed over to Defera. Yeah. Fast mover, that guy. And yes, that is the Worf. He's a little older than he was, but he can still handle your backside if you talk smart to him. And this isn't the way to the exchange. What am I doing? Getting very, very lost, apparently. However, since we're here, Lieutenant Commander Mara has a couple of missions for us. These are the old Star Cluster missions. If you were levelling a Klingon back in the day, as I did, your options were rather limited. PvP, PvP, more PvP, and if you were on the cooldowns between missions or just plain bored, you had the Star Clusters instead. Lieutenant Beta will have a few things for us later on, but right now she doesn't really want to even know our name. The Forge is the crafting area. Again, we'll be coming back here. And the exchange itself is off this way. Indeed. The Chronos Marathon, ladies and gentlemen, it really could have been done much more efficiently. And for some reason they let a Vranga pull onto Chronos. Oh well, I suppose somebody had to deal with the commerce, the buying and the selling. Warriors take what they want, and again, back in the day, that was how it was done. We didn't have exchanges. We didn't buy and sell. If you wanted something, you went out and you took it off your enemy's cooling corpse. Or you just scavenged out the wreckage, depending on how you felt. I suppose you could argue that this is actually an improvement, especially since I believe the exchange is cross-faction. So if you're utterly without backbone, you can trade with the Federation. Yeah, some people. Anyway, we now have to run all the way back across and go visit the bar. Well, I suppose there are some compensations, but really, could we not have left this until the tour of the seedier district of Chronos? Yes, Chronos has a seedy district. However, let us see what he has to say for himself. What does he have to offer indeed? Apparently, nothing of interest regarding Klingon finances. Well, I suppose... Actually, I don't know what to suppose why that sent us over here. I really don't get that bit at all, but hey... It's been a while since I had to have a drink in there. Private stocks of blood wine, having a character who's a general, does have its perks. Now then... Scar. Oh yes, if you want to get some odds and sods from Scar, this guy sells weapons in marks 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. They may have dropped marks 1 and 3 because, of course, since Klingon characters start at level 20 now, those are basically irrelevant. Why on earth would you deliberately downgear yourself after all? So with that done, it's all the way back across Chronos and talk to Nexa again. And unfortunately, this is how it continues, because you essentially find yourself running backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and it's so very, very tempting just to edit out the next few minutes and cut to some actual violence. Or at least the prelude to some violence. It's worth noting that there is a tour of the Red Light District in this mission, so yeah. However, once you're done, Junpok gets on the con, and you do pretty much get a level's worth of experience out of this, as well as your first actual mission. The Lady Sorella has asked, apparently, that we meet her at the house of Martok's estate. Now, a little pointer here. Remember that Martok was killed by Junpok. Sorella does not like Junpok as a consequence, which means that far from requesting us personally, she probably lent on Junpok to send somebody, and Junpok is basically palming the job off onto some no-name commander to make it look like he's doing something, while no doubt quietly hoping that either we fail horribly and the House of Martok takes a beating, or we deal with the threat and possibly bring down a rival to both their houses at the same time. Anyway, we'll see what happens next time, because frankly, I've been talking for quite long enough. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of episode 1 of this horrible, horrible idea. Assuming you haven't already left and declared a blood oath of vengeance upon me for polluting the internet, I will see you next time.